Well, they kind of want me to spin some stories about old Doc Coldiron there in Perry.
Yeah, 'cause we grew up hearing Doc Coldiron stories and all the adventures you and Glen had at Doc Coldiron's.
But when we step on a nail or anything, my granddad Ratliff had died of tetanus from stepping on a rusty nail out in the barn lot. And it was no, after he'd done that, there was no way I guess they could give him a tetanus shot after he done it for a few days. And the doc and four sons, my cousin, took him to the doctor in Red Rock, Dr. Lovelady, and he just forced and pulled out his doctor book, read to him, just said, "You'll die within about a week." And that was, so Forrest said when he brought him home, why, he wanted to go around and look at all of his crops. He died in 23, because he was driving an old Model T Ford. But anyway, tetanus was, Dad was so careful to keep us kids full of tetanus serum. So we made a lot of trips to Dr. Coldiron for this and that. So when Glen stepped on, I told that story in the roller on the new combine that jabbed his leg in to run a piece of angle iron in his leg a little bit. Old Coldiron didn't even put a stitch in it. Then when Glen was with Arnold Prookie and Milton and Joe Ellis, and Glen was in the front seat. And Martin Ray Dean, my cousin, and I was in with him and our girlfriends. And the road was muddy, and I knew that bridge up ahead, Arnold, just north of John Pat's corner.
Uh-huh.
It sat over to the right-hand side of the road. There wasn't no bridge on the left-hand half. They'd widened the road, but they hadn't widened the bridge. And Arnold got over in the left-hand ruts. He was going all right. Martin Ray and I, Martin Ray driving, but he was in the ruts. And we knew, but there wasn't no way we could tell Arnold. Sure enough, he just pushed them boards, and just half of his car got on the bridge, half off. The mud had been raining, and the little creek was running pretty good. The car just fell over in the creek. And Glen did all of that, I guess, when they made that kind of a sudden stop. His head hit the windshield, and a piece of glass cut him right here under the eye and cut his right ear in half. Just sliced it in two. So I don't know how the others got whatever happened to Orla and Milton, and Joe Ellis was in with them. Well, Joe lived 2 miles east of there. No, 1 mile. I guess Joe just took for home afoot. And Martin Ray and I and our girlfriends got Glen in the car, and we put Martin Ray and I's handkerchief on his ear. I got in the back seat with him, and the girls, both girls in the front seat with Martin Ray. Got them to Martin Ray's girlfriend, and they run the phone office. So we kicked them out there, and they run in and got some towels or something. And Martin Ray was about old 41 Chevrolet with sure helmets. And they called Dad, and we told him to call Doc Coldiron. So his office was at his house, so he was up and dressed. And Dad seen us coming across there miles south. We got up there and circled in the yard. He was out there waiting on us. Just crawled in and away we went. Dad said, "Now, Ray, I don't think he's going to bleed to death. We're not in that big a rush. We want to make sure we get there." Slowed him down. We got into Coldiron's, and so we had an old table deal there. We got Glen on the table. I think I laid across his knees and kind of his hips. And Martin Ray held his feet. And Dad held his head stable and turned just right. And Doc sewed up that ear. Doc didn't believe in deadly. That was just a waste of money. Glen, when he'd take a stitch, Glen would make a lot of noise. So he got it all sewed up, and Glen sat up, and I'll never forget. He sat there on the edge of that cot, a hand on each side, and went, just as he did, Doc come up behind him, and the top half stuck out a little from the bottom half. He just took a pair of scissors and evened it up.
Now you know that had to hurt.
Oh, you could have heard Glen for 3 miles. After he just went, and then that big beller, I don't know if he had time to inhale before. He had to laugh. But I don't remember him putting a bandage on it. Oh, he'll be all right. Of course, give him a tetanus shot.
Well, I remember one time Glen visiting, and it was just me and him out somewhere. I went, "Unc, I've heard so much about your ear," because he always grew his sideburns out and back and covered that ear, you know, both ears. So he just and showed me, and I was like, there was a nasty scar on the back of his ear. he was like, "Man, that hurt."
But then, well, Glen had a wart on his tongue. We was in Perry, and he said, "You know, this bothers me." I said, "We not in no hurry, are we?" I said, "No." He said, "Swing by Coldiron's." And, well, we called him Hot Rod for short instead of Coldiron. And so we did. Nobody was in there, just him. He'd start to work on it. He'd go, shh, just whistle without whistling. And he did got some tools and told Glen, "Stick your tongue out." When Glen did, he just hooked that wart. And Glen, he was pulling, So Doc just took a pair of scissors and he took that wart off. And then he had a pair of clamp like to clamp it so long so that it stopped bleeding. And so he told me to time it so long I had a watch on it. So many minutes. Well, that one hand got tired and he changed hands. Oh, well, yeah, I might have squeezed a little there. So he finally, the time was up. He said, you think I ought to wrap it? Oh, absolutely not. I want to see you put a bandage on that tongue. So he picked up the wart with some to it, went in the bathroom, got some toilet paper, and come bringing it back to Glen. He said, you might want this for a souvenir. And then, well, I guess we'd been plowing long days. Had them 2 old Montague Alices, and come a good rain, and we was laying around the house, and Dad went fishing. Mom had been crocheting and just laid it down, something that she wouldn't do something. And I just picked up her crochet hook, this envelope there, and I just punched it through the envelope. Guess I was punching a little harder than I realized. Stuck it in my finger. Glen said, let's go to the shop. I could get that. Oh, no, you're not. So he took me to Perry, to old Coldiron. You go and drive 13 miles of balancing a crochet hook on your finger.
In an older car, probably not the best roads.
Well, that 77 was noted for being smooth. But we got there and he just laughed. Well, he said, I had a lady come in one time and she'd sat down on us. And he said, I couldn't poke in on through. He said, no, I'll just have to shove that on through and cut the hook off. So he put something on it, I don't know what. And he shoved that on through and missed the fingernail thing. And cut that off, that hook, and pulled that out. And I said, now I suppose you got to swab it. Oh no, I done that. I put alcohol on there. It's swabbed, it's clean. Wrapped it up. But then Glen stepped on the nail in school. They was going out working cattle and things, so he come in on the school bus and crippling. Dad told me, well, just get him in the car and take him to old Coldiron and he'll fix it. He was swabbing it with a stick with cotton on it, then dip it in iodine, then go down in there. Well, you know, iodine kind of burns. And found the bottom and come out 2 or 3 times. But Glen was getting kind of tired of it. I said, Doc, how deep was that? About a ½ inch? Well, I never noticed. He just made up another swab. Well, Glen was getting kind of contrary. Doc went in and put his thumb again. Yeah, maybe a little over a ½ inch.
Well, what's so funny on that story, on them CDs we'd found that Dad had made up, Glen tells the same story, only from his perspective. And what's scary is the same story. And he was saying he could hear Dad and old Doc Coldiron fussing over there about how deep it was, and he knew what was coming, and he was protesting very loudly, but it didn't matter.
Coldiron was something else.
Because he's got his equipment in that little Perry Museum, and then we went in there once and I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff probably worked on my dad.
Oh yeah. He was something else. M.H. Williams telling about he'd caught a big catfish. a treble hook, or had another hook on the line. And he got some way that both hooks was, and he had put the catfish in the water tank. He was trying to get him out, and the old fish give a big flop, and the other hook hooked him H in the nose. Went past the beard, you know. Well, he cut it off. He said, I met more neighbors on the way to town to the doctor. He said, I'd put one hand up like this and wave real quick and get that back on the steering wheel. And down there, the old doc just cut that off and put the hook out. He said, if I'd have thought of it, I could have done that myself and saved the trip to town. Oh, I tell you. But yeah, there was lots of stories with old Doc Coldiron. There was one lady there at Red Rock had to have her tonsils out. Doc done lots of tonsillectomies. And she was worried, and she said, well, how many patients have you lost? Oh, he said, not hardly any. Well, what do you mean? How many have you done? Oh, he said, about 1 in 1,000 is your loss rate. Well, how many have you lost? None. Well, how many have you done? 999. I didn't know. I guess she let him do it. I don't know.
Apparently she lived to tell the story.
Oh, I tell you, there was more stories with old Doc Coldiron.
Well, to change a little bit, I remember you telling on Grandpa one time had an abscessed tooth. And he went to a dentist in Perry. And didn't they pull the wrong tooth?
Oh, that was in Ponca City.
Okay, Ponca City.
He had that one at the Perry, right in the worst of the Depression. And old Doc, well, his name was Sides, S-E-I-D-S. But Dad called him Old Seeds. Oh, he didn't like him. He had the tooth hurting him. And went in and he done something. I don't know whether he pulled the tooth or what. All the money Dad had, he'd ask him how much. It was like $2 or $3. And all Dad had was a $20 bill. And he handed that to him, and Doc grabbed it, run in and through a door and locked the door so Dad couldn't get to him. He stole the rest of it. Oh, none of us kids ever went in his office. He'd have disowned us if we had him. And then, well, I was with him in Ponca City. And he had the toothache. Went up to see the sign, dentist went up, and I guess he wasn't busy. Anyway, and I remember his name, but it was Warwag, W-O-R-W-A-G. Yeah, he got Dad in the chair, and Dad showing him which one. So he did it, pulled the tooth. We went down on the street. A little while, that tooth went aching again. Went up to see him again. Well, he said, I can't do it today. And he wouldn't give Dad his money back for pulling the wrong tooth. Oh, Dad had a lot of dental doctor.
But you were talking about he gave him, that doctor, a $20 bill in the height of the Depression. That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because what was a week's wages in the Depression?
Oh, Dad said that he'd have big, stout young men say, "Mister, I'll work for you. I'll do whatever you tell me to do for a place to sleep and food to eat." And I know Bert Long worked for Martin Deeb on up from back in about 30, and I was about 35 or 36 when Martin moved over on Schultz's place where Barn Neal lived. And he hired Bert Long for a hard hand, and his salary was $30 a month, room and board, $1 a day. And he done post holes with a pair of jobbers.
Because I've heard you tell about during the Depression, they would go down and make fence posts and stuff.
Yeah, Dad worked for Endemic in the wintertime some, making posts. He had a lot of timber. $1 a day in his dinner. And he'd walk. It was a mile west of Sears and a little over about half a mile south. And Dad had cut across the field in the morning, and he wore 2 buckle overshoes. Just come just to the top of his work shoes. He said that was good walking when the ground was froze, but by evening when the ground had thawed out, it wasn't very good walking. but it was quicker than going around the road. Oh man, that was tough times. And Dad always said that in them days, there was a fellow that lived just south of the Sears there on the west side of the highway. It was a fairly nice house back then. Had a basement under it and things. And Farrell worked for Champlin Oil Company in Three Sands. Big oil field just north of us, about 8 miles. And he'd tell Dad, "Now get your gas cans ready, about that weather's looking about right. We can go get drip gas tonight." Dad said drip thunder, said it had so much pressure, nearly knocked the bottom out of your can. But they'd fill all the cans and everything they had, fill their car, and then they had gas till the next time. Of course, there'd be places in there that could do it, but Farrell furnished him lots of gas. And there at Sears, at that station, when I was up big enough, them old gas pumps was up in a big globe. They had a deal there, 1, 2, 3 to 10. That was your gallons. And you pumped that globe full with a back and forth pump on the gas deal. And then you siphoned or just run it through a hose into your car. And I can remember, I thought, boy, when I got big enough to run that pump, oh man, I was uptown, I was getting big. And I was always, if we was up there, volunteering to run the pump, man. But I'll swear I can remember a sign there, 7 gallons for $1. That'd be about 14 cents a gallon in that neighborhood. But yeah, well, I can remember 20-cent gas. You could get 5 gallons for $1. Then it kind of worked up to a quarter. It was 4 gallons for $1. You really search for a cheaper station. There was one old boy there in Perry. Well, he's out North Edge. And he always had the cheapest gas. We'd stop in there all the time. I was in there with Bob Carpenter once. he opened something and there was bottles of whiskey. Oklahoma was dry. That's why he could sell cheaper gas.
He was selling
He
a little
was a
sign.
bootlegger. Well, you ready to stop?